Hey, Amy, it's good to see you, my friend.
What fun. We've been really isolated here. So this is like, hi.
You know what? I'll be honest
What?
with you. There's a side of me that loves that. And if you're going to be isolated, I told Gloria the other day, I said, if we got to do this, the old sociologists in college were right when they said, marry your best friend. because
Oh, yeah.
because at this stage, she and I are having a ball. We read books. We like to watch movies. We like to talk. We like to have arguments. We like to go outside together. So if you're going to be hunkered down, you might as well be hunkered down with somebody you enjoy being with, right?
Yep. Amen, brother. Yeah. Vince and I have had the kind of the unexpected experience of having our youngest, Karina, come back. So college, her freshman year of college was cut short and went online.
Yeah.
And, she was the last. I just stretched out motherhood as long as I possibly could. I made early morning breakfast for 32 years.
Yeah.
Just because I spread my kids out. And I cried so hard when she left for college.
Yeah.
And then we adjusted. And I told Vince, well, now I'm just used to her company again. I have to cry all over again when she leaves. But it's really been, if you're not on the front lines of this pandemic,
Yeah.
it is the heat of battle on the front lines. But those of us that are helping by sheltering at home, it's a totally different experience. I've never been so aware of the weather. I've never anticipated the garden ever like I have this year. We have an old garden in our side yard. The footings are back; they were set in place in the 1920s, and we've added to it over the years. So I don't do a lot of like annual planting. It's just all things that come up that are in the ground. And I think there have been springs and summers that have come and gone, and I never even had the time to notice one bloom. And now, every day I'm like, okay, what's blooming now? And it's just really, there have been parts of this that have been so beautiful.
The quiet part really has, and every now and then, Gloria and I will say, "Let's get in the car." And of course, we live in a small town, so ours is easier. I heard a phrase, Amy, that you'll like. I think somebody said, "We're all in the same boat," and the person said, "No, we're not all in the same boat. We're all in the same storm."
Yes.
But we are all
So true.
in different boats as far as getting out of it. And I know,
Yes.
and I'm very careful because our boat here is pretty nice. We bought 20 acres back when we were teaching school. We have our house here, and across the creek from our house is a place that used to be my father and mother-in-law lived there, and they passed away. We kept it as a guest house, and then we've got another little place called an A-frame, which is on the other side of the property that we built originally for the Gaither Music Company office. And when we outgrew that, we just kept that as a lodging place also. And right before New York got shut down, our Amy was in New York and knew this was going to happen. So she came with her family, and they've been over in our creek house for 2 months.
Oh my gosh!
And
See,
their
what a
son,
gift.
who just got out of college, is staying in the other place. And I said, when I heard that expression, "We're all in the same storm, but we're not in the same boat." I agree with that. Our boat is a pretty nice boat because the boat has brought together once again our little Amy that we value very, very much.
Right.
But to have her there with her two out of her 3 kids has really been pretty nice.
Yes. Yes.
That part's
That's
been nice.
beautiful. I know, and to get to see your grandson, your grandkids
Yeah.
up close, yeah. I'm constantly going. So, what do we do from a distance like this? And, I mean, obviously praying for people, and a lot of us have our clocks, our phone timers set for the same time every day.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to, we've all gained weight here at our house. The pantry distancing has been very tough.
Isn't that fun, though?
I know. But it's funny because every time I go, oh my gosh, I need to go ride my bike. But I try to use things as a trigger, a reminder to go, if you're thinking about food or worrying that you've eaten too much, then get online with the food bank closest to you. And so, it's like you use one thing that feels like something that you make you roll your eyes at yourself and go, well, let that be a reminder to reach out and help the people that are food insecure. If you're aware of it, it just feels like this constant, oh yeah, your jeans are tight. Hey, get online and make a donation. Like, just be aware of how your experience is maybe the other end of the seesaw from somebody else's, because we are all connected in this.
Absolutely.
And so, I think that's why it's like, yeah. So I just try to use those, when I'm going, come on, girl. I just use it as a reminder to engage with somebody that's in a different part of the storm.
Somebody asked me the other day, because, as a kid, one of the first play toys I had was a microphone. I took a wood stick and put a little object on it, and it's a microphone. So I've always loved the microphone. I'm a ham, and I love to do what I do. So somebody asked the other day, said, do you miss doing what you do? And I said, to be honest with you, I don't necessarily miss the performing part, because I finally grew up somewhere, maybe not all the way, but I grew up a little bit. And but I do miss the feedback from the people who are out there. It's one thing for us to get in front of a microphone with a camera and do what we. It's not the same when you sing a line. I'm trying to think of something. I am loved. I am loved. I can risk loving you for the one who knows me best, loves me most, and then teach it to them and have them sing it back. Mm-hmm. I miss that part because you can't do that just with a microphone and a camera here. You need live bodies who breathe, and that part, if you want me to be honest with you, at 2 or 3 months, I'm beginning to miss some, and I guess that's what the Bible's talking about when it said, "Forget not the business of assembling together, forsake not assembling together," because the assembly at that point, I think I miss. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that?
It's so funny. I was thinking about that particular verse not too long ago. Just because gathering together and having shared experiences whether it's singing a song, sharing a meal, but those gatherings that are encouraging they're life-giving and life-sustaining. And we have we've got a backyard, Vince and I have been here for 20 years. And the few times family has come over, with social distancing and all that, it's just been we just feel like we look at each other like, oh, I just want I miss you. Yeah. Everything feels precious, and I do love that. Yeah.
Last time I saw you was at the Dove Awards.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
I saw you. I came out there. And I always wonder, what in the world am I doing out there anyway? So I come out, and I see you and Vince down there on the front row, and I say, I got two friends out there.
That's right. That's right. That was great. Oh, my goodness. I thought that whole show was beautiful. It was a great You know, it's a different. It's an ever morphing crowd, an
Yeah.
ever morphing
Yeah.
family, but it always feels like this crazy family reunion. It just does.
You know what? Those young kids could not be any more kind to me backstage. I mean, there's some young artists that I
Yeah.
probably should know their names, and they're so kind. And they come up and they say, "Can I get my picture taken with you?" And after they leave, somebody said, "Do you know who that is, Bill?" And I didn't know.
You go. The answer is always going to be no. Oh my gosh, that reminds me. Vince is such a great mimic, you know. But
Yeah.
he tells about Ralph Stanley. Or no. Who's the father of
Yeah,
bluegrass music? Bill Monroe.
Bill Monroe. Yeah.
Bill Monroe was being honored at some event, either in New York or Washington,
I think
alongside,
the Kennedy Center.
along with Frank Sinatra. And Frank came up and told him, said all these glowing things, and, and Bill said, "Now, tell me, son, what is it you do?"
What do you do?
Oh gosh!
And I heard that Sinatra was very kind, and he said, "Well, I try to sing, Mr. Monroe," and Bill supposedly said, now he's dead, he can't defend himself, but he supposedly said, "You sing, huh? I bet you're good."
You know that there was a time in the hills and hollers
Yeah.
when people lived unobserved, and that, you know, to me, that's really those. I don't know, where people could stew in their own juices, unaffected by other people and unaffected by culture. It probably develops some of the most unique and some of the most despicable behavior. Yeah.
Did you? I'm sure you did. Did you watch the Ken Burns special on country music?
I did. You know, Vince was a big part of that. And
He was a wonderful part. He is. He is so believable on camera. I mean, he and Marty Stewart, I thought both were really stars as far as just being honest and telling it like it was. Gloria and I watched all 16 hours.
really.
And we were really into it. For instance, I don't know where I was when Merle Haggard was on the scene, but he was totally off my radar. And when Dwight Yoakam was quoting lyrics that he had written, I was told, you know how much I love songs.
I do, yes.
I
Yeah.
was totally unaware of this song that he'd written from a single dad's perspective. We understand songs from a single mom, but I forget what her name was, Alice or somebody. He said, "Alice,
Alice, please believe me." Yeah.
good.
Yeah. How does that song go? Holding things together
Holding things together
since you've been gone.
is not an
Since-
easy thing to do.
Thing to do.
When this job of raising children was a job, something like it was a job that was made for two. Gloria and I were sitting there, tears running down our cheeks,
Yeah.
and said,
Yeah.
"This is not fair. This is not fair."
Yeah.
But those guys, they were so honest with their lyrics. I've often said I think country writers peg the gospel better than a lot of Christian writers do, because I think Christian writers think that they have got to get in King James verbiage and make sure that there's a scripture for every text. But to me, when I heard they baptized Jesse Taylor in Cedar Creek last Sunday, and Franklin County's got a whole lot more man, I went, now that is the gospel.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I remember? I remember a conversation with you one time, and you talked about one of the most compelling moments that was spiritual, and I can't remember how you described it, but it was a scene from All in the Family with Archie Bunker. Do you remember telling this to me?
Yeah.
Okay, I can't remember what the scene was, but you were just talking about how truth comes at you from unexpected places. What was that story? What was that? Do you remember it?
Archie and Edith were meeting with two old married friends who had done well. Of course, Archie just had a regular blue collar job,
Right.
and they were meeting separately. Archie was meeting with the husband down at the bar, and they were talking about old times. And more than that, they were talking about how successful he was. They were getting ready to take a vacation to Europe, and they were doing a bunch of exciting things. And Archie was very kind. I think inside he was wishing that he could lead that kind of a life. And the more they got talking, the guy finally said, because Archie's perception of their life was, hey, this is a great marriage. They're having a lot of fun. And finally, the guy said, we're splitting. You know that. And he said, you're splitting? Yeah. Oh, and more than that, I think he kind of hit on the waitress, and and this was all shocking to Archie,
Right.
So when they got back together, the four of them never came up. They just talked about other things. And then that couple left. And it was just Archie and Edith. Said, boy, they've done it big time having it, not knowing that Edith and the wife were having the same discussion about their relationship. And so, did they say anything else? No, they didn't say anything. And pretty soon, Archie put his hand over on Edith's hand and looked at her and just smiled, and the cameras came in close. And here again, Gloria and I were sitting there, tears rolling down our face, and saying, yes, Archie, yes.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
I can remember you back in the 80s, for about 5 or 6, 7 years, we had an annual retreat up in Lake Barkley. And you were one of the major artists who every year made that a priority. We all prioritize.
Yeah, that was beautiful. I loved those gatherings.
And the coming together of folks like that doing the same kind of thing. I can remember one night we were out under a pavilion, and when we started, and we ate everything, and when we started, it was still light. And as the night went on, the sun went down, it kept getting darker, and there were no lights out there. And we were singing under that pavilion. And even with young kids, sooner or later, you go back to great old hymns. People say, why do you sing old hymns? You don't sing them because they're old. You sing them because they survived, and they still speak. And I can remember singing, my sin, oh, the bliss of this glorious thought. My sin, not in part but the whole, is nailed to the cross, and I bear it no more. Praise the Lord, oh my soul. I remember Milo Lefevre was there with some of his young kids who had just found Christ off the streets. still had some street language, but who was saying, where did that song come from? And at that time, we also met another dear friend that I've stayed in close touch with. I know you have too, Dudley Hall. Every time I think of Lake Barkley, I think of Dudley, and such a wise man.
I know. He's a beautiful soul. He told me that you called him on a Saturday morning while he was having coffee, and you said, I am just imagining that with the passing of your dear wife, Betsy, probably coffee on Saturday morning is a tough thing to get through. He told me that you had called him and said that. And you're a good friend, Bill. I think you were right too.
Friendships are important. Maybe as except when I was young, friendships were, and my friends were all over the place. My friends were young when I was young, but also I can remember some of my best friends were old friends too. I hate segregation of age from an age perspective in church. I think we ought to all be together, young and old, black and white, tall and short.
Yes.
Tall and short. And especially when we worship, I think. I mean, and his his. Speaking of losses, you were aware that we lost Gary McSpadden in the last a couple months.
Yes.
Gary was a dear friend, so I'm losing a little too many friends during this. Jonathan Pierce sang with us, and he passed away. So
really,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't. I didn't know about Jonathan and Vince, his best friend from childhood. They were friends since summer after 6th grade, and then once Vince could tour actually with a road crew, his friend Benny
yeah,
came alongside him and was the guitar tech. And Vince said, I've never been handed a guitar on stage in the last 30 years that wasn't tuned up by my oldest friend, and he passed away 2 weeks ago.
you know what? I saw Vince. Gloria and I went down to see him at Indianapolis a year ago at Murat. A bad winter storm. The thing was jammed out. And that must have been that kid was handing him guitars in. Mm-hmm. How
Like 2 feet, two feet shorter than Vince. Yeah, in fact, he would say we were friends from the time that Benny was taller than I. So
you know what was amazing? We went out in the lobby before and after, and these were the people in the lobby were the same people who came, or many of them were the same people who came to our concerts. And it was like one big old family. And Vince was great. I know he was it was a good night. It was a good night. I had several. Speaking of friends, and young friends and old friends, you were good friends with Minnie Pearl, right?
well, I think she probably had a wide circle of friends.
Yeah,
But I met her when I was in the 8th grade,
yeah,
and she knew my dad.
yeah.
And anyway, yeah. And so I did consider her a friend. And there are people that knew her much better than I did. Chaz Corzine. I mean, I think they had lunch together every other week.
Are you serious?
But oh, he's got all the stories.
yeah,
But she would drop me a note in the mail, just I don't know, once every few months.
yeah.
I wish I'd saved them. But it would just be, I saw you on such and such, just always 1 or 2 or 3 lines, but just good job, keep smiling, always love them, always love your audience, they'll love you back. I mean, it was just,
Yeah.
in that peach-colored stationery, I was like, okay, here's another note from Minnie. Yes.
She was a big part in the Ken Burns special on country music. They
Yes.
they had a lot of clips from her. Of course, they didn't have any current
Right.
speaking parts, but they kept referring to her and her. She was proud of who she was, and she was country before country was cool, and
Yep.
so Gloria and I found a whole lot of fun in watching that. I'm sitting at a studio that I first heard a tune. Before I talk about that tune, I can remember John Thompson coming to me. It was raining in Nashville, and I was in a little practice room somewhere, and he came in. He was drenching with rain, and said, "I am working on a tune. See if you're interested in this and doing something with it." Everybody thinks people like us know a big song, a good song, and that we are the ultimate source for stuff like that. I can't tell you how many good ones that I didn't see coming along. But he said, "I'm working on this tune." I go there. And when he did that to me, I said, yeah, it kind of sounds nice. I don't know where it's going. It was just a brief little thing, but there was no interest. Okay, about 2 or 3 months later, he got together evidently with Michael Card, which was a God thing, because Michael's theological background and his knowledge of the language and everything, it was the right place to go. And after that, every time John would see me, he'd say, "Bill, you would listen to a new song I did?"
That's great. Okay, so I got a text. So I recorded that song, El Shaddai, in the fall of 1981.
Yeah.
So it came out, that was almost 40 years ago.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's amazing.
Yep. And so I get a text from my nephew, who is in his 40s now, and they were driving in a tiny town, Carthage, Tennessee, and I guess came across a radio station that played Christian music. And he has a daughter named Elle, who's in grade school. And El Shaddai came across this recording. I was 21 when I recorded that. I'm 59 now. Anyway, and her brow just gets more and more furrowed. And finally she said, "Why is Aunt Amy saying El Shaddai?" Her name is Elle. I know. Oh, yeah.
It's amazing. Everybody thinks there's some kind of magic formula. I look at most of my life and all the good things that happen, I just have to say, it was a God thing, and I'm grateful for it. I don't know why it happened. I must have been listening on that day. But what started it was, I'm in this studio. When I think of this, there was a producer who had written a little song called "You're Just a Fat, Fat, Fat Little Baby." And I listened to it. And Gary McSpadden and I had a little publishing company in Nashville, and I called Gary, and I said, "Gary, I think I just heard a pretty good little song. Do you want to hear it?" He said, "Yes." So I forget how I sent it to him. The day I'd MP3 it, but I got it to him. And 2 days later, he said, "Brown Bannister is looking for a lighter kind of a tune for a project for your album El Shaddai, wasn't it?
Yep.
It wasn't on that. So I wasn't listening to God on the day that John Thompson came up. But with the fat little baby, I guess I was listening on that day, right?
I guess so, yeah. So my first mother-in-law, Mary Chapman, had this prayer that she prayed every day, and she taught it to me in the craziest time of my life. I had young children, work was bustling, and I think we met at the coffee pot one day, and I was like, I said, I don't think I have prayed a succinct prayer. I'm doing overseas interviews in the middle of the night. I can't function. And she grew up in a different era, the Depression era, so simple, in a tiny town in Texas, had nothing. And she said, "Oh, Amy, it just takes one good prayer a day." And of course, my Church of Christ background, I was like, oh no, that's not nearly enough working for God. And she said, I said, the one prayer, like you pray one prayer a day? And she said, well, it's just the main prayer. And I said, well, what is it? And she said, just pray, Lord, lead me today to those that need me, to those I need and those that need me. And let something I do have eternal significance. And she said, that'll take you a long way. And so when you talk about that, like I've been praying that prayer 30 years now. And it's so funny because I'll be pumping gas, just at the tank, you know, and somebody will be pumping gas on the other tank.
Yeah.
And no kidding, that goes through my head. And I'll think, do I need them? Do they need me? But it's just like having your antenna up that everything is a possibility, you know? So you were living all that right there with those songs.
You know, I think one of the most important itches that we all have as human beings is, do I matter? Like, you know, I don't think everybody would say it like this, but I think there are days in everybody's life that they might say, you know, if I were to die tomorrow, would it make any difference? I did a best of Bev Shea on his 99th birthday, and what a delight. I said,
yes.
Bev, you're 99. He said, yes, and if you turn it upside down, I'm 66, you know. But he and I love to get together and exchange lyrics of great hymns. I would do like My Sin, Oh the Bliss, you know, or the things of earth will dim and lose their value. If we'll recall, they're just borrowed for a while. And the things of earth that cause this heart to tremble, remembered there, will only bring a smile. But until then, my heart will go on singing. Until then, with joy. And so then he'd quote back one from his Wesleyan background. But one that we brought up that I have not heard many contemporary writers address this subject. And it's what I call the subject of mattering. Do I matter? And it is an old song written, and he knew the writer. In fact, he said,
of course he did.
Yeah, he said, Bill, did you ever meet the guy who wrote the Old Rugged Cross? I said, no, I didn't. Bev. Is that crazy? But there is an important song on mattering that goes, does the place you're called to labor seem so small and little known? It is great if God is in it, and he'll not forsake his own. Little is much when God is in it. Labor not for wealth or fame. Back to your mother-in-law's prayer that day. Labor not for wealth or fame. There's a crown, and you can win it if you go in Jesus' name. I love that song. And the vocal band, Wes sings that, little Wes, go, little is much when God is in it. You know? And
that's great.
so I couldn't help but thinking of that on your mother-in-law's prayer. Lord, today, let something happen that I can make a difference in somebody else's life. That's an important one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we're all connected.
Gloria said there are only two prayers. Help me, Jesus, and thank you, Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I when I talk to Karina just about the faith journey, I say 2 rules, 1 prayer. And I got that from a friend of mine that had a wild life and then had a life-changing experience. I mean, he won't even tell me all the stories from his young life, but he was like, I should have been dead many times. But he said, love God, love others, and really the crux of the Lord's prayers. Forgive.
It doesn't get any better than that. Making music, loving God, loving each other. Making music with my friends, loving God, loving each other. The story never ends. I love your song, Breath of Heaven.
Thank you.
Do you still sing that?
I do. I sing it a little bit lower
Don't
than I
we all?
used to, but
Gravity,
but every
isn't it?
Christmas.
Nothing like gravity, is there?
Ooh, I know. Vocally and everywhere else. Oh, yeah. I love that song. The music was written by Chris Eaton,
Yeah.
a dear friend, and we've written a lot together. And he let me rewrite the lyric. It was actually a completed song. And I don't even remember the original lyric, but I just said, please let me rewrite this as a story song. And he said yes. And so, but I love that chorus. It's just it's a prayer that applies to everything.
Yeah. And not just, it was on a Christmas album, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
But there are some songs like that need to be sung the entire year round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Years ago, I think it was like 2006, I had done a collection of essays that was published together as a book. And anyway, there was a bookstore, maybe a Borders Books in Manhattan, and I was doing a kind of a Q&A. It wasn't musical, but it was just in kind of a side room in the Borders bookstore. And I was answering questions, telling additional stories, and there were 3 girls there, and they asked if I would sing that song. And I said, well, I have no accompaniment. And they said, well, we'll help. And I said, okay, and why this song? It was, it wasn't near Christmas time. And anyway, but they had been 4 sisters, and one had recently passed. So I was like, okay. I said, yeah, we can sing this. And, you don't even know who is in attendance at something like that. It's not big. It was maybe 80 people.
Yeah.
And on the other side of the glass doors, it's obviously like a conference room. It's no fee to get in there, but just, part of the Borders book experience anyway. But I started singing, and I mean, there must have been some important singers in really good choirs who were also there that knew that song, and the bass was filled in.
And they started
Oh
filling.
my God! I've never heard anything like that. It was just like I get choked up even thinking about it. But it meant so much to those sisters, and we just sang the chorus over and over again.
A cappella.
Yes,
Yeah, because
and it was so rich and deep. And then the manager of the Borders bookstore was like, "What the?" He said, "I've never had anything like this happen." And that's where I love any kind of like any experience that without going, we're about to have a moment that feels completely surrounded by the presence of God. You don't even have to say that, but it's just it's the way that faith and creativity create an environment. And when it happens, that can be a rare experience for somebody that doesn't frequent those kind of experiences. And I mean, I've had concert promoters be out at the soundboard going, "What's happening here? I've never felt anything like this," or somebody from a bookstore, and it's just to me, I have so much confidence in that kind of gathering affecting somebody's life, like making that somebody can experience going, there is so much more to daily life than we're led to believe. It's like, well, if you can have this eyeliner or this organized closet or this, we're just bombarded with sales all the time. But somebody gets a taste of living water, love, the presence of God, whether it's in a song or at a bookstore or just any show of compassion and kindness. And I think people just go, I want that. What is that? You know?
Carmen had a song one time called I Want Some of That. I
Yeah.
want some of that. And as Christians, I wish for all of us, I am with you so much on that. Gloria and I have spent our lives, and we've been criticized for it because we haven't walked in the same. And I've been criticized a lot for the humor stuff, you know. But it is what I am. But there is no compliment that will get my motor running than an old truck driver coming up to me and not even look, and doesn't hardly make eye contact, but he said, "You Bill Gaither?" And I say, "Yes, I am." I watch you on Saturday night. I said, "Well, thank you, I appreciate it." He said, "Now, don't get me wrong, I love this."
I know.
You know what's coming, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not religious or anything, to which I say, neither am I. And neither is the person that we sing about. In fact, the religious people of the time killed him
Yeah.
because he wasn't, quote, unquote, religious. I love that compliment probably about as well as any compliment. Because for that guy, he doesn't want to see it all. He doesn't want to see you perfect. He doesn't want to see it all dressed up. He doesn't want to see all. He just wants to know, do you love me?
Yeah. Am I welcomed at the table? Yep.
Yeah. Am I welcome? Am I welcome at the table? We wrote a song one time that said, "There's always a place at the table." And I had a friend who said, "Is there a place for a doubter at the table?" I said, "Sure, Thomas, come right on in." I mean, there's a place for everybody, and I've loved what you have stood for so long for that reason. When I was a kid, our Sunday school class was downstairs in a basement, a little sump pump in the side, and there was a picture of Jesus with his arms like this.
Yeah.
That's a good image.
Yeah, it is.
Is open, you know.
Yeah.
And I believe that so much.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
And when and when he says whosoever will, I mean anybody. To that old truck driver, hey, yeah, come on. I mean, the water's fine. Come on in. But I love your description because I've been there so many times when the guys say, "Hey, what happened?" What happened?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
We've been blessed, haven't we? To be able to do what we love to do for this long.
Yep.
And it's been a long-term friendship. Hey, can I give you a joke for you to tell events? Because every time we're together, I give him anything new that I've had.
I would give you a joke from him, but most of his are not repeatable.
Okay. The guy's in Walmart with this cart full of Kleenex, toilet paper, cleaning supplies, and everything. And this woman sees it, and she is outraged. She comes up to him, shaking her finger. "I can't believe you are hoarding during a time like this," and yells and calling him names for about 3 or 4 minutes or so. And she kind of wound down after all that. And the little guy looked at her and said, "Are you finished?" And she said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Would you mind moving over a little? I got to stock this shelf."
That's great. Biting the hand that feeds you.
Amy, you are a delight. And it's always a joy to spend some time with you. And you've been very kind to give me this time. I know you got other things to do today, so go and be blessed.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's great to see your face, Bill. I have known you and loved you a long time.
Same here.
And your family